Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Big Thinker universe. And in honor of that, I wanted to show you my little version of an infinity screen. No, I'm kidding. This is something that smarter people know how to edit out. Jeff's not in edit mode today, so I'm just want to show you something. And what I'm going to be doing, the whole point of Big Thinker Universe is we're going to talk about big things. So I am adamant. I'm a fan of entrepreneurialism. I believe that entrepreneurs will save the planet. I'll take you off that so you don't see that too much. I do believe that entrepreneurs will save the planet, and they are the greatest force for good if they're doing the right things. So, one of the things I love to talk about the most is artificial intelligence, specifically ChatGPT. And the other thing I like to talk about is ways to help local businesses, big businesses, small businesses, international businesses, digital businesses. I love to help businesses thrive and grow. And so, a few of the things I cover in Big Thinker Universe, I am obsessed with the concept of mastermind. So, we'll talk about masterminds, how you can create one and run one. They're amazing tools for helping you grow your business, helping you learn new things, helping you build community. We're going to talk about business networking just by default because that's who I am, that's what I do. And we're definitely going to talk about podcasting as a tool for business growth. And one of the other things I love to talk about is writing, whether it's writing books for self-publishing or writing content that helps your clients. Basically, we're going to talk about a lot of things. And the final thing I'd say, which I think is where ChatGPT can give us the most leverage, is creating systems and processes so that we can train our staff on how to do things better. Now, full disclosure, everything I need to know about business I learned in high school while working at McDonald's. It only took me 50 years to figure out what that meant. Not quite 50 years, but basically, Barry Lautner, thank you, Barry. At the time, I thought the man was a little bit crazy because he was really excited about owning a McDonald's franchise. And more importantly, he was really excited about working with young minds and helping us understand business. You heard that right. Every time I saw the man, he was whistling, he was happy, he was smiling, and he'd say, "Jeff, you are so lucky you're getting a world-class business education." Now, for context, I didn't see it that way when I was young working at McDonald's in Saskatchewan. If it's 40 degrees outside, it's hot in the kitchen as well. I remember being covered in kitchen grease. I think I burnt myself, and he came up and said, "You've got this world-class business education." And I looked at him, I said, "Are you nuts?" And like I said, it only took me a few decades to figure it out. The secret to that success was not in that how much Jeff knew in the job, it was the systems and processes that allowed pretty much a group of teenagers at its peak, 40, 50 of us working in unison to achieve a goal with minimal adult supervision. We had like 3 or 4 shift managers and things like that. But basically, that's the power of systems and processes in business. So, Big Thinker Universe is not some theoretical, hey, we're going to talk about nice to have and must have. What I'm going to show you is how I do things. Now, for the record, you might look at what I do and think, "Jeff, that's crazy," or "Jeff, that wouldn't work for me." That's okay. I'm going to ask you one little challenge. I'm going to ask you to ask yourself, when I share something, how does this apply to me? And full disclosure, I give you complete and utter permission. Maybe the answer is it doesn't. Maybe I'm going to show you a use for ChatGPT that you'll never use. Okay. But if you consciously decide, that's very different than looking at it going, I don't want to learn that. That's new. I'm going to believe it. So I'm going to teach you a lot of things. And one of the crazy things I'm going to teach is how I learn. And I'm also going to teach how I train. And believe it or not, both of those things, I got a solid foundation for that coming out of my experience at McDonald's. So these are not all going to be rambly rants. Today, I'm just trying to tell you what's in my universe. And going forward, there will be some specific things. But first and foremost, what I'd like to teach you today is how I use ChatGPT to solve any problem in my life. And this is my methodology. You're welcome to use it. You're welcome to ignore it. But I strongly encourage you to ask yourself, how does this apply to me? Now, first things first, I want to point out that I use the paid version of ChatGPT. Most of what I do, you can use the free versions. But I will say this, that using the free version is a little like working with a classroom of elementary students, let's say maybe grade 3 or 4. They're not all paying attention. Some of them have had a little too much sugar for breakfast, and sometimes they go on tangents. It's kind of like when you're at the symphony and you're listening to beautiful music, and in the rare instance, somebody stands up and starts playing the kazoo. That's what it's like using the free version of ChatGPT. Full disclosure, the paid version also has the odd, I'm going to call it AI hallucination, but for the most part, the paid version is significantly smarter. And I will say it's like dealing with a class of really well-educated experts, the world-class business consultants who every now and then they've either had too much coffee or not enough coffee, and they're not fully paying attention. But when they are paying attention, they're brilliant. So this is my number one. Here's how I solve problems using ChatGPT. And I'm going to show other mental models and methods that I use. You're welcome to adapt those that fit you. You're welcome to ignore those that don't. And a lot of this is coming from my book series about mastering ChatGPT in business. Now, the reason I love ChatGPT, and I'm not going to cover all of the other versions of AI, is that this is the tool I use the most. So I want to show you the tool I'm best at. I will occasionally feature other tools that other people have recommended. But for the record, if anything requires graphics or visual design, not my thing, I'm going to leave that to the experts. So my goal here, just to be clear, is to help you get better help from the experts that you hire. So asking them better questions, having better conversations. And so that's how I'm going to structure this. So for today, I'm just going to show you a really, really simple process, how I use ChatGPT to solve a problem. So for most businesses, the number one problem is usually, how do I get more clients? How do I make more money? How do I get more profits? And believe it or not, 3 very different conversations, 3 very different approaches. We'll talk about, let's say, profits first. I'm going to just do this as an example and focus on the methodology that I use. I will, in my books, I share all of the details. I share the scripts. I have, if you join our newsletter, you can copy and paste these things. But basically, focus on the process, not the exact words. So down the road, I'll teach you about being a prompt engineer. Actually, today, that's what we're going to do. Today, we're going to talk about being a prompt engineer, and basically what this is. And I see this a lot with software. People just pick it up and think, oh, I'm smart enough, I can figure it out. With ChatGPT, the prompts that you use will determine the results you get. So the better your prompts are, the better your results. Now, the number one mistake, please don't ever do this, is people come into ChatGPT, you see my window open here, and you say, please write a blog post about improving profits in a local business, period. Okay, this is the worst possible prompt ever. And the reason is, garbage in, garbage out, you're going to get a generic response. So if you write this, you'll see it's writing something. Now, in all fairness, you might get a very different result if you type this in. You can see my memory is full. That means I've spent a lot of time training ChatGPT. I've culled the things that I don't want in it. I've been intentional about the things it's trained in. But if you're just using it, and like I said, you can also do this using ChatGPT 3.5, you'll get a very different response. Now, this is probably a decent article, but this is literally the worst thing you can do. You ask a very generic prompt, you get your first response, you copy it, and you paste it on your social media or on your blog, and you go, done. This is literally the lowest use of AI, and quite frankly, it exposes you because it could be garbage, it could be good, but really, is it something you know? So, number one, I use AI for things that I know well and things that I know enough about to know if it's done well or not. But this is the wrong way to do it. This is very much, I call it, it's like vending machine. You drop in a quarter, which is your prompt, and you get whatever you get, and it is what it is. Don't do that. So what I do, let's say I have a problem and I would like to get some guidance. Okay. So first things first, I tell Chat GPT, and I'm just going to say chat or GPT. I'm not going to keep saying it all. But basically, I tell the model what my challenge is, what I think about it, and how I'd like to go in the direction. So the first step is you give it some background. Now, I like to give the background, and I like to give it an objective. Yes, I'm using the word prompt a lot, but basically, going forward, I will be finding a way to speed these up so that you don't have to watch me type. But basically, I'm giving it a little bit of background. Now, I have a prompt template that I use, and I have trained it in this. So you will see that it already has a pretty decent start. So what you'll see is I've shared, here's what I have. So this is your first step. You give it a little background, you give it an objective, you share what you have. Now, most people will go, okay, this is good. Here's where I take a twist. I'm going to ask, who are the world's leading experts? And this is absolutely amazing where you start to get into the experts specifically in the field you're looking at. So this will tell me who the experts are and what they sort of work in. Now, this is where I start to get a broader perspective. And you'll see, so it's given us 8 pretty decent resources. You can go and research all of them, but what I like is it does have links to others. And by the way, The difference between the free and the paid ChatGPT 4.0 has real-time access to the internet. So you can see it's giving me, wow, we've got 10 other areas. Thank you for this list of areas of expertise. So in one, a couple of dialogues back and forth. And by the way, this is the case of go slow at the front to go fast later. So I have a list of 8 experts, including training materials. And now you can see it's given me 2 more experts. So by my count, we have a total of 28 experts. Please confirm that we have a list now of 28 experts that can assist with our. Now, this is where it starts to get magical, so I can't stress this enough. The magic of AI comes from iteration. So you can see it's given us a list. In full disclosure, sometimes it'll come back and say, yes, we have 28, and it will list 20. Sometimes it does that. As you can see here, it did 20, and then it added these ones at the end. Okay, what is one piece of advice that each experts would have on existing? Now, by the way, I use the hashtag and then prompt template. That means something to me. I just figured out early on I'm sick and tired of writing things out in long form. So I've created and trained my AI model to use my shortcuts. Now, maybe these people would give this advice, maybe they wouldn't, but it's generally good advice. And again, I can read these quickly and I can say, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I promise you, at least once in a conversation, it'll throw something in there that you don't like. Just say, I don't like that. Let's focus on the other things. And by the way, it won't offend the model. Just say, hey, I don't like it. Okay. Okay, so based on this advice, what specific actions? Okay, so now I'm asking it to give me some action. So I went from high, what are the categories of experts, to who are the actual experts. Now I'm saying, okay, based on their advice, what should I do? Okay. By the way, I always say please and thank you, because the way I see it, I'm talking to myself with AI. This is not about whether AI will become sentient and enslave humanity or not. It's really, if I'm talking to myself and I can't be bothered with please and thank you, it's just bad habit to get into, and I'm not going to remember to be polite to other people. So in this, you don't need to read this whole thing, but basically it's telling us we need an objective, we need some feedback or goal. What are we shooting for? What's the format or style? Who's the audience or context? What's the role that ChatGPT is playing? Give us an example or some constraints. And it's gone in to add ethics and problem solving and collaboration and training and updates. This is an amazingly thorough prompt. Now, you probably will get great results just with an objective, a goal, a format, an audience, and a role. But if you were to get an employee to do something, you'd probably give them an example and say, here's what success looks like. So I like that. let's consider this as final as updates for our. Okay. So once you've got this final, then I would encourage you, and I will put this in the notes below so you can copy and paste it. But basically, practice using this prompt. And like I said, if you want to shorten it, you can ask GPT to shorten it, or you can just arbitrarily, just copy and paste down to here, for example. But because I talked about training, why not? So this is now, watch this. Thank you for your help. Please prepare a vi- of engineering. So now you can see what I did there. And again, I'm being lazy just in the interest of time. But I've asked it to create an outline for a 2,000 word article. And you can see it prepared the outline. Oops. Oh, and now normally it pauses and asks for feedback, but you can see it went into it's doing the article for me. So basically, normally I would ask it for an outline, then I would ask it for the article, and depending on length, I would go segment by segment. But what you can see is this is a very detailed, and we can even ask it to include some references and things like that. But you can see this is very different than saying, write me a blog post about topic X. So that's the number one thing I would say is if you're using ChatGPT, take the time to learn how to use it. Yes, it looks very intuitive. Literally, all there is this little command line, and you can enter things. But the thought process of how you train it is important. So that's how I use ChatGPT to create prompts that I can then use to create content. And by the way, if you're an expert at something, you want it to lead with your expertise, you can do that. But this is one of my favorite ways to use ChatGPT is to get it to help me use it better. Now, one of the things I didn't show yet is it is really good at brainstorming. So when I'm getting done a conversation, I'll always ask, what else should I have asked you? Look at that. This can create a nice little frequently asked questions document, and it gives me some ideas. And without reading these in detail, I can almost guarantee each one of these can become a follow-up blog post that I would research and create similarly. So that is my thoughts on prompt engineering with ChatGPT. I look forward to sharing more insights in the world of ChatGPT and AI in general in the Big Thinker universe. Thank you for hanging out with me.